The public love Murf the Surf.
I'm in the Surfing Hall of Fame. I went undefeated. Jack's story is all-American guy, becomes the most infamous jewel thief in American history.
It was like an Ocean's 11 story, how brazen they were.
I'm in the front page of the newspapers. I'm in television. I'm a big deal.
When you hear the name Jack Murphy, what words come to mind?
Murderer. And that's when everything started changing.
He told me he didn't kill that girl.
Then he got born again.
Murf the Surf found religion.
Your whole life is one of repentance.
A man's a con man, and he's a liar.
How could you possibly get redeemed from that?
You don't find God. He finds you.
All right. Hi, RJ.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, well, and pleasure. And I can only say been wanting to meet you and have you on this podcast that I've been doing forever. Forever.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks. I'm
big fan of
glad
your
to be
work.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, big fan of your past work, both directing, producing some of my favorite docs in the last bunch of years. And it's great to bring you on. Now,
Thanks.
You're wearing a Mets cap.
I am.
Most importantly. So what does that indicate, other than the fact that you don't dislike the Mets?
Oh, it's baseball season. Finally, we've endured the 6 months of between. Well, is it 6 months really? It's not that. It hasn't been this long. November, December, January. We've endured the 3.5 months since the World Series, and I'm excited to welcome baseball back. And I am a Mets fan. This is one of my passions. So they just came out with these awesome vintage corduroy hats, and I'm delighted to be modeling it for your audience.
I am too, and I might have to get one myself.
Yeah, they can go to it's a 5950. They can New Era. They can they're fitted. Not inexpensive. So if you're saving your shekels for a rainy day, maybe you won't want it, but you never know.
Yeah, maybe a subscription.
It's a good present for all your Mets loving baseball fans.
Yeah, I was going to say, when did your affection for the Mets start? Because I'm just kind of curious when I see somebody who's a Mets fan.
Yeah, I go back. I was raised in a town about 20 minutes away from Flushing, where the Mets play. When I was a little kid, you could take the Long Island Railroad from the town I grew up in to Willets Point. Yeah, I'm from Great Neck, and you could take the train from Great Neck to Willets Point in Flushing Meadow, and when we were, I don't know, when I was in 6th grade, they started letting us go on our own. But before that, I had the experience of rooting the Mets on to the World Series victory in 1969. That was I kind of came of age as a baseball fan in 1968. That was the first year I started paying attention. My grandfather taught me how to read the box scores and the standings.
Okay.
And I never let it go. In my family, you didn't root for the Yankees. We were Brooklynites, so you rooted for the Dodgers, and then of course before I was born, the Dodgers left town, and when the Mets came around a couple of years after I was born, we started going. They started going to Mets games, and as I say, around when I was 8 years old, they started taking me to Mets games, and we were there in 1969 when the Mets clinched the division pennant and ran out on the field and tore up the grass. My dad let me plant the grass in our backyard. So there you go.
The Mets win the pennant. The Mets win the pennant.
There you go. There you go.
I think we're roughly the same age, maybe more or less. And I grew up just minutes from Shea Stadium. And that's why I ask. And I think we're kind of grew up in the same wonderful players, at the time. I mean,
Sure.
They were heroes. So I grew up on the mean streets of Forest Hills, and
there you go.
But
we used to go out there too. We'd go out for the tournament. I saw
yeah.
Jimmy Connors the year that Jimmy Connors and Chrissy Everett were engaged. I think they were both in the finals, and there was a rain delay, so they played on the same day. It was supposed to be Saturday and Sunday, but it rained all weekend. And both the men's and the women's finals were on Monday, and our folks let my sister and me miss school that Monday to go into Forest Hills, and we got to see both Chrissy and Jimmy, whatever year that was. I was probably early 70s, mid 70s.
I remember you showing up and seeing you down the block. But I will say, the last thing I will say on the subject of nostalgia and geography is just that every other Saturday for years, my dad drove me to Great Neck for guitar lessons.
Oh, nice.
So
you ready for this one though? I got one for you. We studied piano and in Great Neck, and our piano teacher would come to our house. She was in our house twice a week, my brother and sister and I, and her name was Mrs. Cohn, and her son was little Stevie Cohn. Little Stevie Cohn is now the owner of the New York Mets. So his mom was our piano teacher. So there you go. Full circle.
I was trying to top that, but I think you just won you won the round. We'll have that Amana radar range mail shipped to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm tip of the iceberg.
Well,
I'm holding back.
This is this docu-series you directed and produced called Murf the Surf is certainly a nostalgia piece, one could argue, by and large.
Although, if ever there was a Trumpian figure to tell a nostalgic story about, it's Murf the Surf.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because here you
want to buy a pillow?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That should be the name of the series.
Murf is he's I guess at the time like a Robin Hood kind of dashing hero, even though he's an anti-hero. He's a jewel thief, which I think back then had and he was very handsome, charismatic, and
sure.
Movie star qualities. So I said yes, exactly. Until things got a little darker. I guess until he gutted 2 young women and wrapped them in barbed wire and tied them to cinder blocks and threw them in the water and got sentenced to multiple lives in prison. Yes, sure, if you want to pick.
Yeah. Yeah, it got dark. It
does get dark, yeah. So, what was this, since you brought up the kind of the comparison to, we can see one thing, which is how Americans, it wasn't as of the last 5-6 years where Americans are, all caught up in charismatic figures. It goes way back, of course, way before that. And here's a great prime example of such a
not just charismatic figures. Yeah. You're right. It's very much seems to be central to our identity as Americans, not only to be compelled by charismatic criminals, but also to be compelled by snake oil salesmen. We don't mind really that someone's lying to us. Sometimes we like it. Sometimes we want to. Because we're hoping that one drop of snake oil will cure all that ails us. or maybe just because we like the way it sounds. And but it is part of our very nature. You know, how many people said about Donald Trump when you'd see those stories? What is it about Donald Trump that compels his followers? And the reporter would say, don't you know that he's lying? There's no infrastructure week coming. The debt is, increased tenfold. None of what he's saying is true. They don't care. I don't care. I like that he's telling you the truth. Because that upsets you. It doesn't upset me. Or I like that he's not telling the truth. There seems to be something about the charismatic snake oil salesman and the shamelessness of it that is compelling to us. And Murph was so much more than that, because he was also, as you know, a man of God. And we have a lot of those figures in our culture and society who draw our attention and sometimes turn out not to be what they say they are. What do you know?
Yeah. Well, Murph could have been, in that regard, I guess, Murph could have been like a cult leader. He could have chosen to start a cult. I mean, he had the sort of the personality for that.
Yeah, but yeah, well,
I mean, just
yes, and now we get into all sorts of complexities, and they become very rich. He was very concerned with the nature of his narrative and how it was presented to the world, and as you know, we explore that at great length in the series.
Yeah, well, that's what this is. Is this your first docu-series as opposed to your 85-minute document?
Oh, my friend, I made a docu-series in 1999 called American High. We won the first Emmy for nonfiction television series. We spent a year in a high school outside of Chicago. We gave kids cameras back in the day where there were no smartphones. They filmed, we filmed a whole year of a high school, the senior year of high school for a dozen kids. And we've done many series since then. But I guess you might say this is the first true crime series that I've directed, and the first time we've explored true crime. And I was particularly fascinated by the fact that Murph is probably the first true crime television superstar in American history. We had just gotten over, we had just gotten through the assassination of JFK at the end of 1963. And, you could say that television kind of came of age in that moment. Americans used the television to kind of mourn together and experience that together. And then the very next thing that caught their attention was Murf the Surf and his jewel thievery. And American, by February of '64, Americans were gathering around their TV not to mourn JFK, but to follow the exploits. Did they catch him? Did he confess? Did they find the jewels? And this went on for months. Yes. And that was the story of Murf the Surf.
Who was a guy named Jack Roland Murphy. Grew up in his formative years, I guess you could say, Southern California.
Yeah.
Correct me, because I may have gotten a little of the timeline off. So he was a world-class surfer.
Yes.
Right.
That's correct. He was a surfing champion, and he and one of the early ones. He found his way. He went to Pittsburgh on a tennis scholarship. It was the very first person to receive a tennis scholarship to the University of Pittsburgh. And he, but after a few months at the University of Pittsburgh, he decided the college was not for him. He wanted a more adventurous life. And he wanted to go to the magical place he had experienced in the movies called Miami. And off to Miami he went, and he was particularly adept at water sports. He could high dive, he could entertain, and he did. and he became a cabana boy. He was extremely handsome. He loved the company of women, and they loved the company of him. And he made his way kind of as a handsome party boy, willing to apply suntan oil for tips and other things. And he also got caught up with a group of guys who had one toe on each side of the law, some of whom had both feet on the other side of the law, and eventually that led to him starting to get involved in jewel thievery, which was rampant in those days, and that led to him going up to New York to rob the Star of India at the Museum of Natural History, a diamond the size of your fist, and that you got to wear sunglasses to look at it, so bright. And he and his friend broke into the Museum of Natural History and got away with that crime, and that's what made him famous and made him Murf the Surf, the subject of America's a collective fascination.
Yeah, so a couple of things going on. One is, clearly, even though maybe there was no expression at the time called known as being an adrenaline junkie, clearly this was something for him. He kept getting, I think, more addicted to that kind of lifestyle, and from his surfing and all this, maybe. And then also, this is also at a time when, surveillance wasn't quite so ubiquitous, right? So you could be a jewel thief and you could get away with it. Whereas now, I mean, trying to steal anything is a real headache, I can tell you.
Have you tried?
I'll
tell you this seriously. I was just at the Museum of Natural History over the holidays, and we brought our kids there. And you can't steal the Star of India from the Museum of Natural History today. No way, no how.
Because it's already been stolen.
No, it's
back.
been restored. It's been restored.
Okay.
Murf spent was in prison for the theft, and it was restored, and returned. But that place is a fortress, and in those days it wasn't. We didn't expect people to steal things like the Star of India.
Yeah. That's again. Let's mention again, the name of the series is called Murf the Surf, and it is currently streaming on the MGM Plus streaming platform.
Yes, and you can access that in all sorts of ways, but among them is through Amazon Prime.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Okay, Amazon Prime as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to also mention that it is a production of not only yourself, right, and your company, but of Imagine Documentaries, which is a pretty big deal.
Yes, well, our good friends at Imagine brought the project to me and to my company, This Machine. Justin Wilkes and Sarah Bernstein at Imagine, and of course Brian Grazer and Ron Howard all brought the project our way, and I was immediately compelled by it, and it's been a great partnership.
They maybe saw some of your past work, is my guess.
Well, you'd have to ask them, but certainly I think we've been trying for many years to find a project to work on together.
That would include Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry, which was hugely successful. Belushi, which I loved.
Thank you.
What a great documentary and story around the guy. Really did justice to him and his story. So again, a lot of my favorites, going all the way back to The War Room, which you've produced, Oliver North documentary, right? A Perfect Candidate. That was your first documentary, I think.
That was the first film that I directed. David Van Taylor and I directed that together.
Yeah, good start, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, really, your track record is pretty impressive.
Thank you.
And I would love one day to, my next question was going to kind of be, do you see a through line? Because I know some of your projects have been for hire, in the sense that, not that you don't choose which ones you're going to do for hire, but that, you know, maybe they come to you, the opportunity, as opposed to your creating the opportunity and deciding, oh, this has been something I want to pursue. But it may be of those, the latter category, I'm kind of curious if you see a streamline in your work or a fascinating recurring themes that really seem to have, you know, taken hold of your creative, process, you know.
Well, it's a great question. You know, look, you never know where an idea is going to come from. Some of them come, you know.
Sometimes these are things
I've always wanted to do a baseball project, and you know, haven't been able to find my way to it. And somebody called the other day with a great baseball project, and I got very excited. So there's always there's any path is a good path. This is a perfect example. I love this series so much. I'm so proud of Murf the Surf and the work that we've done on it. And I don't believe I ever would have had the idea myself, but because the good people at Imagine Documentaries got the rights to Murf's life and reached out to me, I was exposed to it. So where the idea comes from isn't as important as what it is that kind of draws me to saying yes to it. And there has to be something, there has to be a spark that is going to drive me through what can be, you know, a multi-year process, and we tend to be proud of the results, and I've loved all the I think all of the films that I've made, and I'm very proud of them. But it's an intense experience. So, you know, for instance, with Billie Eilish, it was meeting her, sitting with her. At the time, she was 16 years old when I met her, and I was invited to sit with her and her brother Phineas and her folks in the backyard of their house, and we spent about an hour just talking about film and talking about what this project might be like, and talking about life, and we clicked in a way that made me think, this is somebody whose story I want to tell, somebody who will in the coming years not only be coming of age as an artist, but also as a young woman. And what an incredible opportunity to tell the story of both of those things. And so that drew me. But, you know, similarly, when I met Anna Wintour for the first time, we were talking and she said something about her father that made me think, oh, there's a fascinating factor, something about her that is leading her to talk to me about her dad. And there's a woman who's ready to tell her story in a way that I'm compelled by. And I'm also drawn to different worlds. What an incredible way to spend your career. You know, you get to float into these worlds. You get to spend a year in Anna Wintour's world, and then you get to walk away after the year. Yeah. You know, you get to spend a year in Billie Eilish's world. What a gift! What a treat! What an honor, really. I'm making a film now about Elton John. I'm making a film as well about Martha Stewart. These two extraordinary people who live such rich lives, whose lives stand for so much, who have such complex, emotional, dramatic life stories with so much work that has impacted the world in such fascinating ways. What an honor, you know. So it's always something different. There are themes, I think, probably that I'm drawn to again and again. I'm of course very interested in, I think, in greatness and what the nature of that is, what a genius, if you will. I'm certainly drawn to people at a crossroads in their lives, and what the nature of that is in the human experience. I'm very interested in the American character. So there you go.
Well, if you're interested in greatness, you know, look at your catalog of films, because you're a great documentary filmmaker and storyteller. Let's not even just pigeonhole you. We'll just say storyteller. Look forward to seeing more. And then one day I would love to do more, maybe, you know, expansive conversation about the work and about the different films, because you as you're just speaking and about this immersive experience as a storyteller that you have over and over, and the diversity of that it sounds like a great conversation. And since you have so much free time anyway, no, so maybe I'll see you at at
City Field
rather. And this, be great to I'd love to get back there, even though I live in the Hudson Valley, but
well, we love the Hudson Valley very much. So we'll look forward to seeing you one of those two places. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And best of luck with Murf the Surf on Amazon Prime and MGM Plus right now. You can go from
yes, really it's on MGM Plus, but you can access MGM Plus through Amazon.
As the kind of gateway platform for
exactly.
Well.
And
but MGM Plus
and MGM Plus is an awesome outlet with if you're a Bond fan, but so much more great music, documentaries, lots of amazing stuff there.
Thank you so much, RJ.
Thank you so much. We'll see you again.